I used to think my Grandma Aurora was an open book, its pages filled with stories she readily shared over steaming cups of chamomile tea. Stories of her rose garden, her mischievous cat named Mr. Darcy, her travels through the Italian countryside, and the countless sweaters she knitted for every grandchild, each stitch imbued with love. Her life, as I perceived it, was a gentle melody, a comforting rhythm of simple joys and quiet contentment. Her blue eyes, the color of a summer sky just after dawn, always held a serene sparkle, a silent promise of warmth and understanding. I felt safe in her presence, as if nestled in the softest of blankets, shielded from the harsh edges of the world. Aurora's hands, gnarled with age and etched with the map of a life well lived, were my favorite. They were always busy, always creating, always offering comfort. I remember countless hours spent sitting at her feet, watching those hands work magic with yarn and needles, or carefully tending to her beloved roses, their fragrant blooms a testament to her patient care. She'd tell me stories then, not grand adventures but simple tales of resilience, of finding beauty in the everyday, of the quiet strength that bloomed in the face of adversity. I absorbed those stories like sunshine, letting them nourish my soul and shape my understanding of the world. I believed I knew her, truly knew her, in the way only a grandchild can know a grandparent. A bond forged in unconditional love and shared moments of simple joy. It was only after she passed, after the quiet stillness of her absence had settled over us like a heavy blanket, that I discovered the hidden pages of her life, the chapters she had kept carefully guarded. The reading of the will was a somber affair, attended by all the family, each of us carrying our own weight of grief. My Aunt Clara, ever the pragmatist, seemed more concerned with the distribution of assets than the loss of a woman who had been the heart of our family. And then there was my cousin Serafina, Clara's daughter, who always seemed to radiate an air of entitled superiority, a silent expectation that the world owed her something. The will was straightforward. The house, with its rose garden and sun-drenched kitchen, went to my uncle, her eldest son. The antique jewelry collection was divided amongst the granddaughters. And then there was the matter of a small wooden box, tucked away in the attic, its contents specifically designated for me. The attic, a place of forgotten treasures and whispered secrets. I had spent countless hours exploring its dusty corners as a child, imagining myself as a daring adventurer uncovering lost civilizations. Now, standing amidst the shadows and the scent of aged wood, the air thick with the ghosts of memories, I felt a different kind of trepidation. This was not a game. This was a descent into the unknown depths of a life I thought I knew. The box was smaller than I expected, no bigger than a loaf of bread. It was made of dark, polished wood, intricately carved with floral motifs, the details softened by time. The latch, tarnished with age, clicked open with a soft sigh, releasing a faint scent of lavender and old paper, a fragrance that instantly transported me back to Aurora's embrace. Inside, nestled amongst faded silk scarves, lay a diary. It wasn't a fancy diary, the kind with a leather cover and gilded edges. This was a simple notebook, its pages filled with Aurora's familiar, yet somehow unfamiliar handwriting. The cover was a worn soft brown, almost the color of earth, and the paper felt thin and fragile beneath my fingertips, like the wings of a butterfly. The ink, once a deep sepia, had faded to a gentle brown, hinting at the passage of time and the weight of unspoken words. My heart pounded in my chest. I knew with a certainty that settled deep in my bones that this was something extraordinary, something that would irrevocably change my perception of my grandmother, of my family, of everything I thought I knew about the past. I sat there for a long time just holding the diary, feeling its weight in my hands, absorbing the energy that seemed to emanate from its pages. The attic air grew thick with anticipation, the silence broken only by the rhythmic thumping of my heart. Finally, with trembling hands, I opened the diary to the first page. The date was scrawled in the upper right corner. 1942. A wave of dizziness washed over me. 1942. The height of the war. A time of unimaginable hardship and sacrifice. A time so far removed from the gentle world I associated with my grandmother. The first entry was brief, almost cryptic. The letter arrived today. He's gone. I have to be strong. He's gone. Who was he? And what letter could have caused such profound sorrow? The questions swirled in my mind, a tempest of curiosity and unease. As I turned the pages, I began to piece together a story far more complex and compelling than anything I could have ever imagined. A story of forbidden love, born amidst the chaos of wartime. A story of unwavering courage and selfless sacrifice. A story of a hidden legacy that echoed across generations, shaping the lives of those who came after. Aurora's diary revealed a woman I had never known. A woman who had faced unimaginable challenges with grace and resilience. A woman who had loved deeply, lost tragically, and carried her secrets with quiet dignity. The diary spoke of a young man named Alessandro, an Italian artist with a passion for life and a heart full of dreams. Their love blossomed in the shadow of war, a fragile flower pushing its way through the cracks of a broken world. They met in secret, stealing moments of joy amidst the pervasive fear and uncertainty. Their love was a beacon of hope, a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit. But their happiness was short-lived. Alessandro was a member of the resistance, fighting against the encroaching darkness. He was eventually captured and imprisoned, his fate uncertain. Aurora, heartbroken but resolute, vowed to do everything in her power to save him. Her diary detailed her courageous efforts to help Alessandro, her clandestine meetings with resistance fighters, her daring acts of defiance against the occupying forces. She risked everything, her safety, her reputation, her very life, for the man she loved. And then silence. The diary entries became less frequent, more fragmented, filled with despair and uncertainty. The final entry, dated 1945, was simply a single sentence. He never came home. I closed the diary, my hands shaking, tears streaming down my face. The weight of Aurora's untold story pressed down on me, a heavy burden of grief and admiration. I had known her as a loving grandmother, a source of unwavering support and gentle wisdom. But I had never known the depths of her strength, the extent of her sacrifice, the profound sorrow she had carried within her heart. My Aunt Clara, never one to miss an opportunity to assert her dominance, was furious. A diary? That's it? That's all your grandmother left you? Some old scribblings? Honestly, Mother was always so sentimental. She scoffed, dismissing the diary with a wave of her hand. I'm sure it's just filled with silly love poems and recipes. Serafina, ever the echo of her mother, chimed in. Probably just a bunch of boring old stories. Honestly, what a waste of perfectly good attic space. I clutched the diary tighter, my anger simmering beneath the surface. They didn't understand. They couldn't understand. This wasn't just a diary. This was a window into the soul of a woman who had lived a life of extraordinary courage and sacrifice. This was a legacy, a treasure more valuable than any material possession. But the discovery of the diary revealed something else, something far more sinister. Tucked within the pages, I found a faded photograph of Alessandro, his eyes filled with a captivating warmth. On the back of the photograph, Aurora had written a single sentence. Our son. Our son. The words echoed in my mind, shattering my preconceived notions of my family history. A son. A secret child hidden away for decades. A child who would have been my uncle, my aunt's father, the patriarch of our family. And then I understood. I understood why Aunt Clara had been so dismissive of the diary, so eager to downplay its significance. She knew. She must have known about Alessandro, about the hidden child. And she had been determined to keep the secret buried, to protect her own carefully constructed image of her family. But Aurora, in her wisdom, had anticipated this. She had entrusted the diary to me, knowing that I would be the one to uncover the truth, to bring the hidden story to light. And so here I am, ready to embark on this journey into the past, to unravel the secrets of my grandmother's hidden life, to uncover the truth about Alessandro, about their son, about the legacy that has shaped our family for generations. This isn't just about a diary. It's about forbidden love, wartime sacrifice, and a family secret that has been buried for far too long. It's about reclaiming a hidden history, about honoring the memory of a woman who lived a life of extraordinary courage and resilience. It's about confronting the lies and the deceptions that have shrouded our family in darkness. And it all starts with this diary, with these faded pages filled with Aurora's whispered secrets. If you'd like to keep me company as we explore these memories, please subscribe and stay close. This is a story that deserves to be told, a story that deserves to be heard. And I promise you, it's a story that will change everything. The scent of lavender and old paper rose from the diary's pages, a fragrance that transported me instantly. It wasn't just the smell. It was the echo of a life lived, a life that had somehow become a stranger to me. As I turned the brittle, yellowed pages, the spidery handwriting began to weave a spell, painting a picture of a world I barely knew, a world that was hers. Willow Creek. The name itself whispered of peace, of a life lived in harmony with the land. In the late 1930s, it was a place where time seemed to slow down, where the rhythms of nature dictated the pace of life. It was a place untouched, or so it seemed, by the rumblings of war that echoed faintly from across the ocean. I see her now, a young Aurora, her eyes the color of the summer sky after a rain. She was a wisp of a girl, all elbows and knees, with hair the shade of ripening wheat, often escaping its braid to dance around her face. She spent her days lost in the fields, her small hands stained with the rich earth of the family farm. The farm, a sprawling patchwork of green and gold, was her world. Rows of corn stood tall and proud, whispering secrets in the breeze. The scent of hay freshly cut and drying in the sun filled the air with a sweet, earthy perfume. It was a place of hard work, but also a place of profound beauty. Her parents, Thomas and Eleanor, were farmers through and through. Their lives were etched with the lines of the land, their hands callous but gentle. They were simple folk, content with their lot, finding joy in the small things. A bountiful harvest, a clear night sky, the laughter of their children. Thomas, her older brother, was a dreamer. He spent hours gazing up at the sky, his eyes following the flight of birds, his heart yearning for something more. He devoured books about aviation, his head filled with tales of brave pilots and daring feats. He spoke of flying machines and distant lands, igniting a spark of wanderlust in Aurora's heart. Then there was Lily, her younger sister, a soul as delicate and fragile as a butterfly's wing. Lily saw the world through the eyes of a poet, finding beauty in the smallest of things. A dewdrop clinging to a spiderweb, the vibrant hues of a sunset. She filled notebooks with verses, her words painting vivid pictures of the world around them. Their days were filled with the simple routines of farm life. Up before dawn, they helped with the chores, milking the cows, feeding the chickens, tending to the vegetable garden. Afternoons were spent in the fields, weeding the rows of corn or harvesting the ripe fruits of their labor. Evenings were a time for family, for sharing stories around the dinner table, for listening to the crackling voices on the radio. I remember one summer evening in particular. The air was thick with the scent of honeysuckle, and the fireflies danced in the twilight like tiny stars fallen to earth. Aurora lay on a blanket in the field, her head resting on her mother's lap, gazing up at the vast expanse of the night sky. Her father pointed out the constellations, tracing their shapes with his finger. He told stories of gods and heroes, of mythical creatures in faraway lands. Aurora listened, her imagination soaring beyond the boundaries of Willow Creek, beyond the familiar comfort of her family farm. She loved her family, loved the peace and tranquility of her life. But there was something else, a quiet yearning, a sense that there was something more out there, something she was meant to discover. It wasn't a discontent, not exactly. It was more like a seed planted deep within her soul, a seed that was slowly beginning to sprout. She found solace in books, devouring stories of adventure and romance, of far-off lands and daring exploits. She imagined herself as a fearless explorer, charting unknown territories, or a renowned artist, capturing the beauty of the world on canvas. Sometimes she would escape to her favorite spot, a sprawling oak tree at the edge of the farm. She would climb its branches, finding refuge in its leafy embrace. From her perch, she could see the entire valley spread out before her, a tapestry of green and gold. She would close her eyes and imagine herself flying, soaring above the fields, above the trees, above the world. Her brother Thomas fueled this yearning. He would tell her stories of airplanes that could cross continents, of pilots who defied gravity and soared through the clouds. He promised her that one day he would take her flying, that he would show her the world from a different perspective. Lily, in her own way, also nurtured Aurora's dreams. She would read her poems filled with longing and beauty, with images of faraway places and exotic creatures. She taught Aurora to see the world with new eyes, to find wonder in the ordinary, to appreciate the beauty that surrounded them. But even amidst the beauty and the love, there was a subtle undercurrent of unease. The world outside Willow Creek was changing, and the whispers of war were growing louder. Aurora could sense the tension in her parents' voices when they spoke of the news from Europe, the worry etched on their faces. She didn't understand the complexities of politics or the reasons for conflict, but she knew that something was amiss, that the world was on the brink of something terrible. The feeling was vague, unsettling, a shadow lurking at the edge of her idyllic world. It was a time of innocence, a time of simple pleasures, a time of dreams and aspirations. But it was also a time of uncertainty, a time when the seeds of change were being sown, a time when the world was poised on the precipice of transformation. And young Aurora, with her heart full of wonder and her soul yearning for something more, was about to be swept away by the tides of fate. The diary entries painted a picture of a life so different from my own, so rooted in the land, so connected to the rhythms of nature. It was a life of simplicity and hardship, of love and loss, of dreams and disappointments. And as I read on, I knew that I was about to embark on a journey into the heart of my grandmother's life, a journey that would reveal secrets I never knew existed, and perhaps, a journey that would help me understand myself. The lavender scent deepened, and I turned another page. The summer of '39 held a deceptive sweetness, like ripe peaches threatening to bruise at the slightest touch. Willow Creek, nestled deep in its valley, still hummed with the familiar rhythms of life. But even there, the distant thunder of war had begun to rumble, faint at first like heat lightning on the horizon, but growing steadily louder. Before, the radio had been a source of entertainment, filling the evenings with music and light-hearted stories. Now news bulletins crackled through the airwaves, reporting on events in faraway lands with names that felt foreign and menacing. Poland, Czechoslovakia, Germany. My parents would huddle around the mahogany box in the parlor, their faces etched with worry as the announcer's voice painted pictures of marching armies and shadowed cities. Thomas, bless his adventurous heart, saw it all differently. He devoured the news with an almost feverish excitement, his eyes gleaming with a thirst for something beyond the quiet predictability of Willow Creek. Imagine Aurora, he'd say, puffing out his chest, being part of something so important, so historic. I couldn't share his enthusiasm. The thought of young men, boys really marching off to fight and die, filled me with a cold dread. Mama, ever practical, worried about the price of sugar and flour. Papa, his brow furrowed, spoke of potential shortages and the impact on his business. They'd both lived through the Great War, and the memory of those lean years haunted them. They tried to shield us, to maintain a semblance of normalcy, but the fear was palpable, a silent guest at our dinner table. I myself felt a strange mix of emotions. The romantic dreams that had filled my head just months before now seemed frivolous, almost shameful. How could I daydream about stolen kisses and moonlit dances when the world was teetering on the brink of chaos? Yet the longing remained, a persistent ache in my heart. I felt a restlessness that went beyond the simple desire for adventure. I wanted to understand the world, to make sense of the madness that seemed to be engulfing it. I wanted to know what was worth fighting for and what was worth protecting. One late afternoon, as I was helping Mama hang laundry in the backyard, a dust cloud appeared on the horizon, moving rapidly towards us. We watched, squinting against the sun, as a military vehicle, a jeep, lurched to a stop in front of our house. A young man in uniform climbed out. He was unlike any boy I had ever seen in Willow Creek. He was tall and lean, with a posture that spoke of discipline and a quiet intensity. His eyes, the color of a stormy sea, held a depth that belied his age. He moved with a controlled grace, a stark contrast to the easygoing swagger of the local boys. He wore his uniform with an air of quiet authority, yet there was a weariness in his shoulders, a shadow in his gaze that hinted at burdens carried. "Mrs. Bellwether?" he asked, his voice low and resonant, with a faint accent I couldn't quite place. Mama, flustered, wiped her hands on her apron. "Yes, that's me. I'm looking for temporary lodging," he said, producing a crumpled piece of paper. "I understand you occasionally take in boarders?" Mama hesitated. She glanced at me, then back at the young man. "We do sometimes, but we hadn't planned on." "I understand," he interrupted, a hint of pleading in his voice. "I wouldn't impose, Mrs. Bellwether. I'm just passing through. A few days, maybe a week at most." There was something in his eyes, a vulnerability that touched Mama's heart. She was a woman who couldn't turn away anyone in need. Well, she said, sighing softly, I suppose we could manage. We have the spare room upstairs. It's not much, but it would be more than enough, he said, a flicker of gratitude in his eyes. My name is Elias. Elias Novak. And just like that, our lives changed. Elias settled into our household with a quiet presence. He was polite and respectful, always offering to help with chores, but he remained reserved, almost guarded. He rarely spoke of his past, or his reasons for being in Willow Creek. He spent his days reading, taking long walks in the woods, or simply sitting on the porch, staring out at the distant hills. He was an enigma, a puzzle I couldn't quite solve. I found myself drawn to him, fascinated by his quiet intensity, his hidden depths. He was so different from the boys I knew, so much more worldly. Our conversations were tentative at first, filled with awkward silences and polite inquiries. But slowly, as the days passed, we began to open up to each other, sharing glimpses of our hopes and dreams. He told me stories of his travels, of bustling cities and ancient ruins. He spoke of art and music, of literature and philosophy. He awakened in me a thirst for knowledge, a desire to see the world beyond Willow Creek. One evening, as we sat on the porch swing, watching the fireflies dance in the twilight, he turned to me, his eyes filled with a sadness I couldn't comprehend. You're so young, Aurora, he said softly. So innocent. Don't let the world steal that from you. His words struck a chord within me. I knew that the world was changing, that innocence was a luxury we could no longer afford. But I didn't want to lose that part of myself, that sense of wonder and hope. I wanted to believe that even in the darkest of times, there was still beauty and goodness to be found. As the weeks passed, the war drew closer. The news reports became more frequent, more alarming. Letters arrived from relatives in Europe, filled with tales of hardship and fear. The atmosphere in Willow Creek grew heavy with apprehension. Elias, too, seemed to sense the growing tension. He became more withdrawn, more secretive. He spent hours listening to the radio, his brow furrowed in concentration. He would disappear for days at a time, returning with a haunted look in his eyes. I knew that he was hiding something, that he was involved in something dangerous. But I didn't press him. I was afraid of what I might discover. I was afraid of losing him. One night I found him in the barn packing a bag. The moonlight streamed through the cracks in the wooden walls, casting long shadows across his face. Elias, I whispered, my voice trembling. What are you doing? He turned to me, his eyes filled with a mixture of sadness and resolve. I have to go, Aurora, he said softly. I can't stay here any longer. Where are you going? I asked, my heart pounding in my chest. He hesitated, then reached out and took my hand. I can't tell you, he said. It's too dangerous. Just know that I have to do this. For my country. For my family. I knew then that he was a soldier, a spy, something more than he had let on. He was caught up in a world of secrets and lies. A world that I couldn't even begin to understand. Will I ever see you again? I asked, tears welling up in my eyes. He looked at me for a long moment, his gaze filled with tenderness and regret. I don't know, Aurora, he said. I honestly don't know. He leaned down and kissed me, a brief, fleeting kiss that tasted of salt and sorrow. Then he turned and disappeared into the darkness, leaving me alone in the barn, with nothing but the memory of his touch and the weight of his secrets. Elias's departure marked the end of an era, the end of my innocence. The war had arrived in Willow Creek, not with bombs and bullets, but with a quiet young man and a stolen kiss. And I knew with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that my life would never be the same again. The world was changing and I was changing with it. I was no longer a naive girl dreaming of romance. I was a woman on the brink of adulthood, facing a future filled with uncertainty and danger. And I knew that I had a choice to make, to cower in fear, or to rise to the challenge and fight for what I believed in. The seeds of rebellion, of resistance, had been planted, and they were beginning to sprout. The scent of wood smoke still clung to my shawl, a phantom echo of the bonfire. It was a smell that used to bring comfort, evoking memories of crisp autumn evenings and shared laughter. Now it was laced with a different kind of memory, the burning of books, the fear in Mrs. Abernathy's eyes. Elias and I met in the hush of twilight, beneath the skeletal branches of the old oak at the edge of the woods. He was a shadow amongst shadows, his face etched with a weariness that mirrored my own. We hadn't spoken much since the book burning, but the unspoken understanding between us had deepened. There was a shared burden, a knowledge of the darkness creeping into our small world. "Aurora," he breathed, his voice a low rumble that sent shivers down my spine. He took my hand, his fingers callous but gentle. "I need to tell you something. Something I should have told you sooner." He hesitated, his gaze darting around as if the trees themselves had ears. The air was thick with unspoken anxieties. I'm not who you think I am." My heart pounded against my ribs. I had suspected as much. There was a haunted quality about him, a sense of being perpetually on the run. "What do you mean, Elias?" He released my hand and paced a few steps, the dry leaves crunching under his boots. "I'm German. Or I was. My name isn't even Elias. Well, it doesn't matter anymore. I was a scientist working for the Reich. But I couldn't stomach it. The things they were doing. The things they were planning." He stopped, his voice thick with disgust. "I deserted. I ran. And now I'm here." The revelation hit me like a physical blow. A German. Here. In Willow Creek. It was almost unbelievable. Fear gnawed at me, a cold, insidious dread. But beneath the fear, there was something else. A flicker of admiration. A surge of protectiveness. He had risked everything to escape, to stand against the tide of evil. He watched me, his eyes filled with a desperate plea for understanding. "I know what you must think. But I'm not one of them, Aurora. I swear it. I left to stop them." "Stop them from what?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. He drew closer, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial murmur. "There's something they're after. An encryption device. It's incredibly powerful. If it falls into the wrong hands." He didn't need to finish the sentence. The implications were clear. "And you know where it is?" He nodded. My mentor, Professor Schmidt, he knew. He was working on it, trying to hide it. Before they got to him. His voice cracked with emotion. He left me clues, riddles. I think it's here in Willow Creek." He explained that Schmidt had been a clockmaker in his youth, a detail that had seemed insignificant until now. He had hidden clues within the intricate mechanisms of clocks, clues that pointed to the artifact's location. "There's something else," he added, his voice grave. "They're here, Aurora. They're looking for me for the device. I've seen them, disguised as civilians, watching, waiting." Suddenly, the unease I had been feeling intensified. The friendly smiles of the newcomers at the general store, the overly polite inquiries about local history, they all took on a sinister new meaning. Willow Creek, once a haven of peace, was now a hunting ground. That night I couldn't sleep. The weight of Elias's revelation pressed down on me, suffocating me. I crept downstairs, drawn to my diary like a moth to a flame. The familiar feel of the leather-bound book in my hands offered a small measure of comfort. "Dear Diary," I wrote, my hand trembling slightly. Tonight, the world shifted on its axis. Elias, the man I thought I knew, is a German deserter. He's running from his past, from a war that threatens to consume us all. He says he's trying to protect something powerful. But I can't help but wonder if he's leading danger straight to our doorstep. Am I a fool to trust him? Or is this love, this connection worth the risk? I paused, the pen hovering over the page. I saw Mrs. Abernathy today. She seemed so small, so fragile. The fear in her eyes, it mirrored my own. I can't stand by and watch as this darkness engulfs everything we hold dear. But what can I do? I'm just one woman in a small town, caught in the crossfire of a global war. The answer, I realized, was staring me in the face. I wasn't just one woman. I was Aurora Klein, granddaughter of Samuel, daughter of Margaret. I carried their strength within me, their resilience, their unwavering belief in what was right. And I loved Elias. That love, terrifying as it was, gave me strength. The next day, Elias and I met at the old church. He had been poring over Professor Schmidt's notes, deciphering the cryptic clues hidden within the diagrams of clock mechanisms. "I think I've got it," he said, his voice filled with excitement. "Schmidt wrote about a sleeping giant and the heart of time. I think he was referring to the church bell and the clock tower. The church, with its towering bell and ancient clock, had always been a symbol of stability and faith in Willow Creek. Now it was a potential hiding place for a device that could change the course of the war. We searched the clock tower first, carefully examining the intricate gears and mechanisms. We found nothing. Disappointment washed over me, but Elias remained undeterred. Schmidt also mentioned a labyrinth of secrets, he said, his brow furrowed in concentration. A place where time stands still. Suddenly I remembered something my grandmother had told me. A story passed down through generations. A story about a network of tunnels beneath the church, used as a refuge during the Civil War. A labyrinth hidden beneath our feet. We found the entrance concealed behind a loose stone in the vestry. The air that rushed out was damp and musty, carrying the scent of earth and decay. It was a chilling reminder of the secrets buried beneath the surface of our seemingly peaceful town. Elias lit a lantern, casting flickering shadows on the stone walls. The tunnel sloped downwards, leading us into the darkness. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the drip, drip, drip of water. As we ventured deeper, the walls narrowed, the air growing colder. It felt as if we were descending into the heart of the earth, into the past. I clung to Elias's arm, my heart pounding in my chest. We came to a crossroads, for tunnels branching off in different directions. Elias consulted Schmidt's notes, his brow furrowed in concentration. He wrote about following the serpent's path, he said, his voice barely a whisper. I think he meant the winding tunnel. We chose the tunnel that snaked and twisted, its walls adorned with strange symbols and carvings. The air grew thick with anticipation, with a sense of something ancient and powerful. Finally we reached a dead end. A solid stone wall blocked our path. Disappointment washed over me, but Elias refused to give up. He ran his hands over the wall, searching for a hidden mechanism. There has to be something, he muttered, his voice filled with frustration. Schmidt wouldn't lead us here for nothing. I joined him, running my fingers over the cold, damp stone. And then I felt it. A slight indentation, a barely perceptible groove. I pressed on it, and with a low rumble, the wall slid open, revealing a hidden chamber. Inside, bathed in the soft glow of the lantern, was a small wooden chest. It was old, its surface scarred and weathered, but it radiated an aura of power. Elias approached the chest, his eyes filled with awe. This is it, he breathed. This is what we've been searching for. But as he reached for the chest, a voice shattered the silence. Don't move. Standing in the tunnel entrance, bathed in shadow, was a figure in a dark coat, a pistol glinting in his hand. A Nazi agent come to claim what he believed was rightfully his. The war had come to Willow Creek, and I, Aurora Klein, was now caught in the crossfire. My quiet life was over. My heart was pounding, but a strange calm settled over me. I would protect Elias. I would protect my home. I would not let them win. The grandmother who tells this story knows that this was just the beginning. The final lock clicked open, a sound swallowed by the thick, musty air of the chamber. Before us yawned a space smaller than I'd imagined, barely larger than a generous tomb. The air tasted of damp stone and something else, something metallic and ancient, like the breath of forgotten machinery. Elias held the lantern high, its beam cutting through the oppressive darkness to reveal walls lined with intricate clockwork mechanisms, gears frozen mid-turn, springs coiled tight with potential energy. My grandfather, the clockmaker, had outdone himself. Incredible! Elias breathed, his voice echoing oddly in the confined space. He moved forward, his fingers tracing the delicate filigree of a brass gear. He built this entire system to protect a single object? I didn't answer. My gaze was fixed on a pedestal in the center of the chamber. Upon it rested a small, unassuming wooden box. It was plain, almost crude in its simplicity, a stark contrast to the elaborate clockwork surrounding it. This was it. What everyone had been searching for. The reason so many had died. Elias turned to me, his eyes shining with a mixture of triumph and apprehension. Aurora, he said softly, we did it. But even as the words left his lips, a tremor ran through the chamber. Dust rained down from the ceiling. The ground beneath our feet vibrated, a low guttural growl emanating from the depths of the earth. They found us. I whispered, my heart leaping into my throat. Elias grabbed my hand, his grip tight. We have to go. Now. He reached for the box, but before he could touch it, a deafening crash echoed from the entrance of the chamber. Light flooded the space, blinding us momentarily. Figures emerged from the darkness, their faces obscured by the harsh glare of their flashlights. Nazi soldiers. Halt! One of them barked in German. You are surrounded. Surrender the artifact. Elias pushed me behind him, his body shielding mine. He drew his own pistol, a small, insignificant weapon against the might of their machine guns. Run, Aurora, he hissed. Get out of here. Take the box. I won't leave you, I protested, my voice shaking. You have to, he insisted, his eyes pleading. This is bigger than us. Bigger than me. You're the only one who can do this. He shoved the wooden box into my hands. It felt cold and heavy, a burden and a promise. The soldiers opened fire. The chamber erupted in chaos. Bullets ricocheted off the stone walls, sending sparks flying. The air filled with the acrid smell of gunpowder. Elias returned fire, his shots precise and deadly, but he was hopelessly outnumbered. I knew I had to move. I had to get out. But I couldn't leave him. I couldn't abandon him to this. Remembering the labyrinthine passages my grandfather had described, I began to move, weaving through the clockwork mechanisms, my fingers brushing against the cold metal. I could hear Elias behind me, his breathing ragged, his movements desperate. Aurora, go! He shouted again. Don't look back. I didn't. I couldn't. I focused on the memory of the maps, the intricate paths, the hidden passages. My grandfather's legacy was now my guide. I navigated the maze, my heart pounding in my chest, the weight of the box a constant reminder of what was at stake. I could hear the soldiers gaining on me, their heavy boots pounding against the stone floor. Suddenly I reached a dead end. A solid wall of stone blocked my path. Panic seized me. I was trapped. But then I remembered. My grandfather had told me about a hidden lever, disguised as a clock hand, that would open a secret passage. I frantically searched the wall, my fingers tracing the cold, unforgiving stone. Finally I found it. A small, almost imperceptible lever, shaped like the minute hand of a clock. Pulled it. With a grinding groan, the wall slid open, revealing a narrow passage leading into darkness. I didn't hesitate. I plunged into the darkness, the wall closing behind me. I stumbled through the passage, my hands outstretched, feeling my way along the rough stone walls. The air was thick and stale, heavy with the scent of damp earth. Then I heard it. A gunshot, followed by silence. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. The silence was deafening, broken only by the frantic thumping of my own heart. No, it couldn't be. I pressed my ear against the stone wall, straining to hear any sound. Nothing. Only silence. Elias. He was gone. A sob escaped my lips, a raw, animalistic sound of grief and despair. He had sacrificed himself for me. For the artifact. For the future. I sank to my knees, the box slipping from my grasp. I didn't care about the artifact. I didn't care about the mission. All I cared about was Elias. He was gone. Taken from me. I stayed there for what felt like an eternity, weeping in the darkness, my body racked with sobs. I had never felt such pain, such emptiness. A part of me had died with him. But then, a flicker of something else ignited within me. A spark of defiance. A burning resolve. I couldn't let his sacrifice be in vain. I had to carry on. I had to finish what we started. I picked up the box, clutching it tightly to my chest. It was more than just a wooden box. It was a symbol of hope. A symbol of resistance. A symbol of Elias's love. I stood up, my legs trembling, my body aching. But my spirit was unbroken. I would not let them win. I would not let his death be meaningless. I continued through the passage, my steps faltering at first, then growing stronger with each stride. I emerged into a small hidden courtyard behind the church. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the cobblestones. I looked back at the church, its ancient stone walls bathed in the golden light of the setting sun. It was a beautiful, peaceful scene. But beneath that beauty lay a darkness, a horror that would forever haunt my memories. I knew then that my life had changed forever. I was no longer just Aurora. I was something else. Something more. I was a guardian. A protector. A warrior. I walked away from the church, away from the scene of so much loss and heartbreak. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I had to keep moving. I had to stay one step ahead of them. That night, huddled in a deserted barn, I opened the diary for the first time since everything. The familiar weight of it in my hands was a small comfort. The smell of the paper, the faint scent of lavender my grandmother used to use, grounded me. I wrote. I poured out my grief, my anger, my fear onto the pages. I wrote about Elias, about his kindness, his courage, his unwavering belief in me. I wrote about the horror of the chamber, the deafening roar of the gunfire, the crushing weight of his sacrifice. Writing helped. It didn't erase the pain, but it made it bearable. It gave me a place to put my emotions, to process what had happened. It was a lifeline in the darkness. As I wrote, I began to understand the gravity of what I now carried. Not just the artifact, but the legacy of courage, love, and sacrifice that Elias had entrusted to me. It was a heavy burden, but I would carry it with pride. I knew that I would never be the same. The girl who had entered that church was gone. In her place stood a woman forged in the fires of loss and hardship, a woman determined to honor Elias's memory by fighting for what was right. The diary became my constant companion, my confidant, my anchor. Through its pages I would keep Elias alive. Through its pages I would find the strength to carry on. And so, my dear, that is how my life truly began. Not in a grand ballroom or a loving embrace, but in a dark, dusty chamber, with the echo of gunshots and the weight of a wooden box in my hands. A life born of sacrifice, and destined to be lived in the shadow of war. A life I would not trade, not for all the riches in the world, because it was a life filled with purpose, a life filled with love, a life filled with the memory of Elias. And that, my dear, is a legacy worth fighting for. The stone scraped against my boots as I ran, adrenaline a phantom limb already fading. My lungs burned, each breath a ragged gasp against the cool air of the labyrinth. The artifact, heavy and cold, pressed against my chest, a constant reminder of Elias's sacrifice. The memory of his final smile, the echo of his laughter, chased me through the twisting corridors, a bittersweet torment. I don't remember how long I ran, only that the labyrinth eventually spat me out, unceremoniously, into the pre-dawn chill. The familiar scent of damp earth and pine needles was a jarring contrast to the sterile ancient air I had just escaped. Home. I stumbled towards the house, a beacon in the encroaching light, each step a betrayal of the man who wouldn't take another. The house was still. The world was still. But inside me everything had shattered. I pushed open the door, the familiar creak, a sound that now felt alien. My reflection in the hallway mirror was a stranger, pale, bruised, eyes wide with a terror I couldn't name. I avoided it, flinching as if the image would reach out and accuse me. The silence was the worst. Elias's booming laugh, his habit of humming off-key, the gentle rustle of his newspaper in the morning. All gone, leaving a void that echoed with the weight of what he had done. I locked myself in my room. The familiar scent of lavender and old books, a suffocating reminder of a life that was now irrevocably altered. I pulled the diary from its hiding place, the worn leather cool against my trembling fingers. It felt sacrilegious to touch it, to write in it without him. Days bled into each other. I moved through the motions of life, a ghost in my own home. My family saw my grief, the raw, gaping wound of loss, but they couldn't see the truth, the unbearable weight of the secret I carried, the burning rage that simmered beneath the surface. The official story was simple, sanitized. Elias, bless his soul, had been in an accident. A tragic fall. No mention of labyrinths, of ancient artifacts, of sacrifices made in the shadows. I sat through the funeral, a hollow ache in my chest, listening to platitudes and condolences that felt like sandpaper on my skin. I nodded, I smiled weakly, I played the part of the grieving granddaughter, all the while knowing the truth was buried deeper than any grave. The artifact was hidden beneath the floorboards of my room, wrapped in layers of cloth, a constant silent presence. I felt its pull, its power, a cold hum against my skin whenever I was near. It was a burden, a responsibility I hadn't asked for, but one I couldn't ignore. Elias had entrusted it to me, and his trust was a debt I intended to repay. Sleep offered little respite. Dreams were filled with twisting corridors, with Elias's fading smile, with the chilling whisper of the labyrinth. I would wake in a cold sweat, heart pounding, the weight of the artifact pressing down on me like a physical force. The diary became my only confidant. Not with flowery prose or grand pronouncements, but with the raw, broken language of grief. Elias, I wrote, my hand shaking, *, they think it was an accident. They think he just fell. *, the words felt inadequate, a pathetic attempt to capture the magnitude of his sacrifice. *, I miss his laugh. I miss his stories. I miss him. *, I closed the diary, the leather warm from my touch. I didn't know what to do, where to turn. I was lost, adrift in a sea of grief and secrets. Then one evening, while rummaging through Elias's study, I found it. A small leather-bound notebook, tucked away in the back of a dusty bookshelf. It was filled with his familiar handwriting, a chaotic mix of notes, sketches, and diagrams. I recognized symbols from the labyrinth, references to ancient texts, and cryptic entries that hinted at the artifact's true purpose. One entry written in a shaky hand caught my eye. *, the key lies within the bloodline. Aurora will understand. *, my heart skipped a beat. He knew. He knew what was coming, what I would have to do. And he believed in me. A flicker of something new ignited within me. A spark in the darkness of my grief. It wasn't revenge, not yet. It was something else, something deeper, a sense of purpose. I wouldn't let Elias's sacrifice be in vain. I would honor his memory by protecting the artifact, by uncovering its secrets, by fulfilling the destiny he had entrusted to me. I started small. I spent hours in the local library, poring over ancient texts, researching forgotten languages, searching for any clue that might shed light on the artifact's origins. I snuck into Elias's study late at night, poring over his maps and notes, deciphering his cryptic symbols. The grief was still there, a constant ache in my heart, but it no longer consumed me. It was a shadow, a reminder of what I had lost, but it didn't define me. I was Aurora, Elias's granddaughter, and I had a purpose. I learned to live with the silence, to find strength in the solitude. I learned to lie convincingly, to hide my true feelings behind a mask of normalcy. I learned to trust my instincts, to see the world with new eyes, to notice the shadows, to question everything. The artifact remained hidden beneath the floorboards, a constant reminder of the burden I carried. But it was also a source of strength, a connection to Elias, a symbol of the destiny that awaited me. I was no longer adrift. I had a direction, a purpose, a path to follow. It would be long and arduous, filled with danger and uncertainty. But I was ready. Grandma always said that grief can either break you or forge you anew. I didn't know it then, but Elias's death, the theft of my intended inheritance, and the secret I now carried had already begun to reshape me. The girl who had stumbled into the labyrinth was gone. In her place was something else. Something harder, something more determined, something ready to face the darkness. It was not a quick transformation, not a dramatic one. It was a slow, quiet awakening, born from grief, fueled by purpose, and guided by the memory of a man who had given everything. And she, the woman I was becoming, would make those who wronged him regret it. She would make them pay. Willow Creek felt like a ghost limb after that, a phantom ache of what was gone. The house, once filled with Elias's laughter and the scent of his pipe tobacco, echoed with silence. Even the garden, bursting with the roses he'd so lovingly tended, seemed to droop under the weight of my grief. I stayed just long enough to settle his affairs, to sell what needed selling, and to pack the few precious things I couldn't bear to leave behind. His diary, his research notes, the artifact, and a handful of photographs. Then I left. Leaving felt like another betrayal, another severing of ties to the life I knew. But I couldn't stay there, not with the memories clawing at me, not with the fear that they would come back, looking for what he'd hidden. I needed to disappear, to become a shadow in a place where no one knew my name, a face in a crowd that wouldn't recognize my sorrow. I chose a city not too big, not too small, a place where I could blend in. It wasn't glamorous, not like the places Elias had dreamed of taking me. It was a city of brick buildings and cobblestone streets, of working-class families and the clatter of trolley cars. I found a small, unassuming apartment above a bakery, the scent of warm bread a constant, comforting presence that somehow managed to soothe the raw edges of my grief. The rooms were sparsely furnished, the walls painted a drab, institutional green, but it was safe. It was anonymous. It was a place to begin again. And begin I did. My days became a relentless cycle of study and self-imposed discipline. Elias's diary was my Bible, his notes my Rosetta Stone. I devoured them, poring over his meticulous handwriting, deciphering his cryptic annotations, trying to understand the secrets he had guarded so fiercely. The artifact, nestled in its velvet-lined box, sat on my desk, a silent, enigmatic presence. I spent hours examining it, turning it over in my hands, trying to unlock its mysteries. Elias had hinted at the artifact's true power, suggesting it was more than just an encryption device. He believed it held the key to understanding enemy communications, that it could decipher their codes, anticipate their moves. It was a daunting prospect, a task that seemed far beyond my capabilities. I was, after all, just a small-town girl, a librarian with a love of books and a broken heart. But Elias believed in me. He entrusted me with this burden, this responsibility, and I wouldn't let him down. The local library became my sanctuary. I spent my days immersed in dusty volumes, researching everything from cryptography and linguistics to military strategy and German history. I learned about Enigma machines and cipher systems, about the inner workings of the Nazi regime and their relentless pursuit of power. The more I learned, the more I understood the magnitude of what Elias had possessed, and the danger I was now in. But knowledge was power, and I needed to become powerful. I sought out discreet consultations with professors at the local university, men who specialized in languages and codes. I presented myself as a research assistant, a student working on a historical project. They were helpful, offering insights and guidance, but I was always careful to conceal the true nature of my work. I couldn't afford to trust anyone completely. Slowly, painstakingly, I began to understand the artifact's workings. It wasn't just about encrypting messages. It was about analyzing patterns, identifying weaknesses, predicting outcomes. It was, in essence, a powerful intelligence tool, capable of providing invaluable information to those who knew how to use it. But understanding the artifact was only half the battle. I also needed to learn how to protect myself, how to move in the shadows, how to gather information without drawing attention. I became a student of observation, watching people, listening to conversations, learning to read body language and subtle cues. I practiced blending in, changing my appearance, adopting different personas. I learned to be invisible, to be unremarkable, to be a ghost in the machine. The city became my training ground. I would spend hours walking the streets, observing the people around me, noticing details that others overlooked. I learned to spot a tail, to recognize the subtle signs of surveillance, to evade detection. I frequented cafes and bars, listening to conversations, piecing together fragments of information. I became adept at gathering intelligence discreetly, at extracting valuable insights from seemingly innocuous interactions. One evening, while sitting in a dimly lit bar, nursing a weak beer, I overheard two men speaking in hushed tones about a shipment of goods arriving at the docks. They mentioned a name that had appeared in Elias's notes. Schmidt. My heart skipped a beat. I pretended to be engrossed in my newspaper, but I strained my ears to catch every word. They spoke of a meeting, a rendezvous point, a time. It was a gamble, but I decided to follow them. I trailed them through the winding streets, keeping a safe distance, always aware of my surroundings. They led me to a warehouse on the outskirts of the city, a place shrouded in darkness and secrecy. I watched as they met with another man, a man whose face was hidden in shadow. The exchange was brief, but it was enough. I had a location, a name, a connection. The next day, I used the artifact to decipher a series of coded messages I had found in Elias's diary. The messages referred to a network of Nazi sympathizers operating in the city, a group that was providing support to the German war effort. Schmidt was their leader, a key figure in their operations. The information was invaluable, but knowledge came at a price. As I delved deeper into the world of espionage and counterintelligence, I became increasingly aware of the danger I was in. I knew that the Nazis were still searching for the artifact, that they wouldn't stop until they had it in their possession. I had to be careful, always vigilant, always prepared. One afternoon, as I was leaving the library, I noticed a man watching me. He was standing across the street, leaning against a lamppost, his face hidden beneath the brim of a hat. There was something about him, something in his posture, in his gaze that sent a shiver down my spine. He looked familiar, like a shadow from my past. I ducked into a nearby alleyway, my heart pounding in my chest. I peeked out cautiously, but he was gone. Had I imagined it? Was it just paranoia? Or was he really there, watching me, waiting for me to make a mistake? From that moment on, I knew I was being followed. I could feel his presence, lurking in the shadows, always just out of sight. I changed my routines, varied my routes, tried to throw him off my trail. But he was persistent, relentless. He was like a hunter and I was his prey. The loneliness was the hardest part. I couldn't confide in anyone, couldn't share my fears or my burdens. I was alone in this fight, a lone warrior against a powerful enemy. I missed Elias terribly. I missed his laughter, his wisdom, his unwavering support. I missed the feeling of being safe, of being loved. But even in the depths of my despair, I refused to give up. I knew that Elias would have wanted me to keep fighting, to protect the artifact, to honor his memory. And so I persevered, driven by a burning desire for justice, a fierce determination to make them pay for what they had done. I was no longer just a librarian, a grieving widow. I was something else entirely. I was a guardian, a protector, a warrior. I was Aurora, and I would not be broken. I would not be silenced. I would not be defeated. The inheritance they thought they stole was more than just a device. It was a purpose, a strength I never knew I possessed. And Grandma Aurora, well, she was just getting started. The war was far from over, and I had a vital role to play. The attic dust motes danced in the single shaft of sunlight, painting golden swirls around me as I held the diary. It felt heavier now, somehow imbued with the weight of the stories I had just read. Grandma Aurora's story. My grandmother's story. It wasn't the simple tale of a quiet life I had always imagined. It was a saga of love, loss, and profound courage, woven into the very fabric of a world at war. The artifact, humming softly within the music box, had become Aurora's lifeline, her secret weapon. The diary entries from those years were terse, filled with coded language and veiled references. Yet the underlying tension was palpable. She used Elias's gift, that strange and beautiful device, to intercept enemy communications, to decipher their plans, and to feed misinformation back into their networks. She became a phantom in the machine, a silent guardian angel for the Allied forces. I imagined her, night after night, hunched over the glowing artifact, her brow furrowed in concentration, the faint scent of lavender and old paper clinging to the air around her. The risks she took were breathtaking. One entry spoke of a near miss, a close call that left her trembling for days. Another recounted the quiet satisfaction of knowing she had diverted a convoy, saving countless lives. She never sought recognition, never craved glory. Her motivation was simpler, purer: to protect the people she loved, to honor Elias's memory, and to bring the war to an end. The diary hinted at specific operations, at crucial turning points in the conflict where Aurora's intelligence had made all the difference. There was the disruption of a U-boat offensive, the thwarting of a planned bombing raid, the subtle nudging of troop movements that led to strategic victories. She never detailed the specifics, always mindful of the secrets she held, but the overall impact was undeniable. She was a force multiplier, a single individual tipping the scales of war with her intelligence and courage. Reading these entries, I understood why she always seemed to possess an almost preternatural calm, a quiet confidence that bordered on the mystical. She had stared into the abyss and emerged stronger, more resilient. She had carried the weight of the world on her shoulders and never faltered. Then came the entry I had been dreading, the one that signaled the end of the war. It was brief, almost anticlimactic. The news arrived today. The fighting has ceased. The world holds its breath. There was no jubilation, no triumphant fanfare, only a profound sense of relief, tinged with exhaustion and a deep, abiding sorrow for all that had been lost. The following entries painted a picture of a world slowly healing, of people cautiously emerging from the shadows, of rebuilding and reconciliation. Aurora wrote of the returning soldiers, their faces etched with the horrors they had witnessed, their spirits scarred by the violence they had endured. She felt a profound sense of responsibility to help them heal, to ease their transition back into civilian life. She left the bustling city, the diary revealed, drawn back to the quiet solitude of Willow Creek. The war had changed her irrevocably. The young woman who had fallen in love with Elias, The woman who had danced under the moonlight and dreamed of a simple life was gone. In her place stood a woman forged in the fires of conflict, a woman with a deep understanding of human nature, both its capacity for cruelty and its boundless potential for compassion. She dedicated her life to serving others. She volunteered at the local hospital, tending to the wounded and comforting the grieving. She taught reading and writing to the children in the village, instilling in them a love of learning and a sense of hope for the future. She became a pillar of the community, a source of strength and wisdom for those who sought her guidance. The artifact, once a tool of war, now became a symbol of hope. She kept it hidden away inside the music box, only bringing it out on rare occasions, to remember Elias and to reflect on the sacrifices that had been made. It was no longer a burden, but a cherished relic, a reminder of the power of love and the importance of peace. She never spoke of her wartime experiences, preferring to keep those memories locked away in the depths of her heart. She didn't want to burden others with the darkness she had witnessed, the secrets she had carried. Instead, she chose to focus on the present, on the simple joys of everyday life, on the beauty of the natural world. And that, I realized, was how she became the Grandma Aurora I knew and loved. The woman who always had a warm smile and a comforting hug. The woman who baked the most delicious apple pies and told the most enchanting stories. The woman who radiated a sense of serenity and wisdom that seemed to emanate from her very soul. The diary entries became less frequent, more introspective. She wrote of her garden, of the changing seasons, of the simple pleasures of growing old. She reflected on her life, on the choices she had made, on the love she had shared. She found peace in the knowledge that she had made a difference, that she had used her gifts to help others, that she had lived a life of purpose and meaning. The final entry was dated just a few weeks before her death. It was a simple message, addressed to whoever might one day read her diary. Remember, she wrote, that love is the most powerful force in the world. It can conquer darkness, heal wounds, and inspire us to do great things. Never lose hope, never give up on your dreams, and always remember the lessons of the past. And above all, cherish the moments you have with those you love, for they are the most precious gifts of all. Closing the diary, I felt a profound sense of gratitude for the opportunity to have glimpsed into my grandmother's extraordinary life. I understood now that her quiet strength, her unwavering compassion, her deep well of wisdom, were all products of the experiences she had endured, the sacrifices she had made. The artifact hummed softly within the music box, as if acknowledging my presence. I picked it up, turning it over in my hands, feeling the smooth, cool surface against my skin. It was more than just a piece of technology, more than just a tool of war. It was a symbol of love, a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit. I carefully placed the artifact back inside the music box, closing the lid with a gentle click. The melody began to play, a haunting, bittersweet tune that seemed to echo the emotions swirling within me. It was Elias's song, the song that had brought Aurora and him together, the song that had sustained her through the darkest of times. I knew then that I would never look at my grandmother the same way again. I would always remember her not just as the loving, gentle woman I had known, but as the courageous, resourceful, and deeply compassionate woman who had helped to save the world. Her legacy lived on, not just in the diary and the artifact, but in the countless lives she had touched, in the love she had shared, and in the wisdom she had imparted. The attic dust motes continued to dance in the sunlight, but now they seemed to shimmer with a newfound brilliance. I had come to the attic seeking answers, seeking to understand the secrets of my grandmother's past. And I had found them, not in the form of scandalous revelations or dramatic betrayals, but in the quiet testament of a life lived with courage, compassion, and unwavering love. And that, I realized, was the greatest inheritance of all. It was a legacy of strength, resilience, and a deep understanding of what truly matters in life. An inheritance that no one could steal. An inheritance I would cherish forever. The velvet cover of the diary felt warm beneath my fingertips, a comforting weight in my lap. The storm outside had finally subsided, leaving behind a hushed stillness that seemed to amplify the quiet rustle of turning pages. The air in the attic, still thick with the scent of aged paper and forgotten things, felt less oppressive now, less like a repository of secrets and more like a sacred space. I had spent days poring over Aurora's words, tracing the loops and swirls of her handwriting, each entry a breadcrumb leading me deeper into the labyrinth of her life. And in the end, it wasn't the inheritance, the money pilfered by my cousin Clara, that mattered. It was Aurora herself, finally revealed in all her quiet strength and heartbreaking vulnerability. I closed the diary for a moment, letting the image of her face, the one I knew from faded photographs, etched with lines of laughter and sorrow, fill my mind. Before, she had been a figure in sepia tones, a beloved but somewhat distant relative whose stories were relegated to family lore. Now she was vividly present, a woman who had loved fiercely, endured unimaginable hardship, and found solace in the simple act of putting pen to paper. The stories she used to tell me as a child, the fantastical tales of brave princesses and talking animals, suddenly clicked into place. They weren't just whimsical fables to entertain a bored grandchild. They were allegories, veiled accounts of her own struggles and triumphs. The princess locked away in a tower, waiting for rescue, wasn't just a character in a book. She was Aurora, trapped by circumstance, by societal expectations, by the weight of her own secrets. And the brave knight who eventually scaled the walls wasn't a handsome prince on a white charger. He was the quiet strength within her, the unwavering resilience that allowed her to survive. I remember one story in particular, about a little bird with a broken wing who learned to fly again, soaring higher than all the other birds. As a child, I thought it was just a sweet story about overcoming adversity. Now I understood it was Aurora's own story, her testament to the power of healing and the enduring human spirit. The broken wing represented the hardships she had faced, the losses she had endured, the betrayals she had suffered. But the soaring flight represented her ultimate victory, her ability to rise above her pain and find joy and purpose in a world that had often been cruel. It wasn't the gold she left behind, or the lack thereof, that defined her. It was the richness of her life, the complexity of her experiences, the quiet dignity with which she faced her fate. Clara could have all the money in the world, but she would never have what Aurora possessed. A heart full of love, a mind full of wisdom, and a spirit that refused to be broken. My own life, I realized, was a continuation of Aurora's story. I had faced my own challenges, my own moments of doubt and despair. There were times when I felt as lost and alone as that princess in the tower, waiting for someone to rescue me. But Aurora's diary had shown me that I didn't need a knight in shining armor. I had the strength within me to rescue myself, to climb the walls and break free. Reading her words, I felt a profound sense of connection, a bond that transcended time and space. We were two women, separated by generations, but united by our shared experiences of love, loss, and resilience. Her struggles were my struggles, her triumphs were my triumphs. And in her story, I found the courage to face my own future with hope and determination. The anger I had felt towards Clara, the resentment that had festered within me for so long, began to dissipate. It wasn't that I condoned her actions, but I understood them. She was driven by greed, by a desire for material wealth. But Aurora had taught me that true wealth lies not in possessions but in the richness of our experiences, in the strength of our relationships, and in the wisdom we gain along the way. Clara could have the money. I had something far more valuable. Aurora's legacy, her love, her wisdom, and her story. I began to see Clara not as a thief, but as a cautionary tale. A reminder that chasing fleeting riches often leads to emptiness, while embracing the beauty of life, even in its most challenging moments, leads to true fulfillment. Aurora's life was a testament to that truth. She had endured poverty, loss, and betrayal, but she had never lost her capacity for love, her sense of humor, or her unwavering belief in the goodness of humanity. The diary wasn't just a collection of stories. It was a map to Aurora's soul, a guide to navigating the complexities of life, and a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is always hope. I realized that I had underestimated her, dismissed her as a sweet old woman with a penchant for fairy tales. But she was so much more than that. She was a warrior, a survivor, a beacon of light in a world that often felt bleak and unforgiving. I picked up the diary again, running my fingers over the faded ink. Each word seemed to vibrate with her energy, her spirit, her love. I realized that her true inheritance wasn't the money Clara had stolen. It was this diary, this collection of memories, this testament to her extraordinary life. And it was a gift that I would cherish forever. The sun began to peek through the clouds, casting a warm golden glow across the attic. The dust motes danced in the light, creating a shimmering spectacle of beauty. It felt as though Aurora herself was smiling down on me, approving of my newfound understanding. I knew that I couldn't keep her story locked away in the attic forever. It was too important, too powerful, too beautiful to be kept hidden. I needed to share it with the world, to let others know about the extraordinary woman who had shaped my life in so many ways. I decided to write her story to tell the world about Aurora, the woman who had taught me the true meaning of love, courage, and resilience. It wouldn't be an easy task. It would require me to confront my own vulnerabilities, to delve into the depths of my own emotions, and to share my most intimate thoughts and feelings with the world. But I knew that it was the right thing to do. Aurora's story deserved to be told, and I was the one to tell it. I closed the diary one last time, pressing it to my chest. I felt a sense of peace, a sense of closure, and a deep sense of gratitude. Aurora's story had changed me, transformed me, and given me a new sense of purpose. I was no longer just a granddaughter mourning the loss of her inheritance. I was a storyteller, a keeper of memories, and a guardian of Aurora's legacy. The world needs stories like Aurora's. Stories of ordinary people who lived extraordinary lives. Stories of courage and resilience. Stories of love and loss. Stories that remind us of our shared humanity. We all have hidden stories within us. Stories that deserve to be told. Stories that can inspire and uplift others. It is our responsibility to uncover those stories, to honor them, and to share them with the world. For in those stories we find the truth about ourselves, about each other, and about the world we live in. And in that truth we find the power to heal, to grow, and to create a better future for all. I carefully placed the diary back in its box, knowing that I would return to it often, seeking inspiration and guidance. It was more than just a book. It was a lifeline, a connection to the past, and a beacon of hope for the future. As I descended the creaking stairs, leaving the attic behind, I carried Aurora's story with me, etched in my heart, ready to share it with the world. The storm was over, the sun was shining, and I knew that everything would be all right. Aurora's legacy lived on, not in gold, but in the enduring power of her story. And that, I realized, was the greatest inheritance of all. Here, at the end of Aurora's hidden diary, at the close of this story whispered from the heart, we find ourselves not at an ending, but at a beginning. Aurora's life, a testament to courage painted in the quiet hues of resilience and sacrifice, echoes still. She was a woman who faced the storm with a steady gaze, whose love flowed deeper than any ocean, and whose strength blossomed in the most unexpected of places. This was Aurora, my mother, your grandmother in spirit, a woman whose inheritance was not merely gold, but a legacy of the heart. She understood long before I did that true wealth lies not in what we accumulate, but in what we give away, not in the possessions we hoard, but in the memories we create. And even when betrayal's sharp sting threatened to break her, she found the fortitude to rebuild, to forgive, and to love again. That, my dears, is the true inheritance she leaves us all. It's a testament to the human spirit's remarkable ability to mend, to grow, and to shine even in the darkest of shadows. If Aurora's story has touched your heart, if a chord within you resonated with her struggles and triumphs, then it has served its purpose. These stories, these whispers of the past, they only truly live when they are heard, when they are shared, when they become a part of the grand narrative of our collective human experience. They are carried on the wind, whispered from one generation to the next, shaping who we are and who we will become. They teach us, they comfort us, and they remind us that we are not alone in our joys and our sorrows. Remember the day Aurora first arrived in this country, a young woman with wide eyes and a heart full of dreams? Remember the sacrifices she made, the hours she toiled, the relentless spirit she possessed as she built a life for herself and her family? Remember the quiet moments of joy, the laughter shared around the dinner table, the warmth of her embrace? These are the fragments of a life, the pieces of a puzzle that, when assembled, reveal a portrait of extraordinary strength and unwavering love. And what of Clara, the niece who sought to seize what was not hers? Her actions, born of greed and a twisted sense of entitlement, serve as a stark reminder that true happiness cannot be found in material possessions. It is found in the connections we forge, in the love we share, and in the integrity with which we live our lives. Clara may have thought she had won, that she had escaped the consequences of her actions, but Aurora knew better. She understood that the true cost of betrayal is not measured in dollars and cents, but in the erosion of one's own soul. The diary, hidden away for so long, was not merely a record of events. It was a vessel containing Aurora's very essence. It was a testament to her unwavering spirit, her boundless love, and her profound understanding of the human heart. It was a gift, a legacy, a whispered secret waiting to be discovered. And now you have discovered it. You have heard her story. You have walked in her shoes, if only for a little while. And what of the inheritance, the money that Clara so desperately craved? It was, in the end, a mere symbol. The true inheritance, the one that truly mattered, was the love, the strength, and the wisdom that Aurora passed down to her family, to me, and now to you. It is the inheritance of resilience, the understanding that even in the face of adversity, we can find the strength to rise again. It is the inheritance of compassion, the ability to see the good in others, even when they have wronged us. And it is the inheritance of hope, the unwavering belief that even in the darkest of times, there is always light to be found. Please, if Aurora's tale resonated within you, if her courage stirred something in your soul, if her love warmed your heart, leave a like. Let it be a small token of appreciation for a life lived with such grace and fortitude. Let it be a silent acknowledgement of the power of stories to connect us, to heal us, and to inspire us. Consider subscribing to this channel. Here we gather to share stories of the heart, tales of triumph and tribulation, whispers of the past that shape our present and guide our future. We delve into the lives of ordinary people who have lived extraordinary lives, people like Aurora, whose stories deserve to be told and remembered. And now I invite you to share your thoughts. What resonated most deeply with you in Aurora's story? What lesson did you learn from her experiences? What part of her life touched you the most? Your comments are a precious gift, a way for us to connect, to share, and to learn from one another. Your words will add another layer of meaning to Aurora's story, enriching it and ensuring that her legacy continues to inspire for generations to come. Perhaps you have a story of your own to share, a tale of a grandmother, a mother, or a friend who has shown remarkable courage in the face of adversity. Perhaps you have a memory of a time when you witnessed the power of love and forgiveness. Please feel free to share your stories in the comments below. Let us create a tapestry of shared experiences, a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit. Aurora's story is a reminder that even in the face of hardship, love can endure, forgiveness can heal, and hope can prevail. It is a testament to the strength of the human spirit, the power of family, and the importance of cherishing the memories that bind us together. It is a story that will stay with me always, a story that I hope will stay with you too. Think back to the moment when Aurora confronted Clara. Feel the tension in the air, the weight of betrayal, the quiet determination in Aurora's eyes. She could have succumbed to anger, to bitterness, to resentment. But she chose a different path. She chose forgiveness. She chose love. She chose to rise above the negativity and to focus on what truly mattered: her family, her friends, and her own inner peace. And what of the future? What will become of the legacy that Aurora has left behind? It is up to us, my dears, to carry on her spirit, to embody her values, and to live our lives with the same courage, compassion, and hope that she exemplified. We must remember her lessons, cherish her memories, and share her story with others. In doing so, we will ensure that her light continues to shine brightly for generations to come. Aurora's story is not just about inheritance. It's about the enduring power of love, the strength of the human spirit, and the importance of forgiveness. It's about finding light in the darkness, hope in despair, and joy in sorrow. It's about living a life filled with purpose, meaning, and connection. Consider the symbolism of the hidden diary itself. It was a secret treasure, a repository of memories and emotions, a testament to a life lived fully and authentically. It was a gift waiting to be discovered, a message from the past meant to inspire the future. It represents the power of stories to connect us across time and space, to heal our wounds, and to illuminate our path. And now, as we reach the end of this tale, I leave you with a question to ponder in the quiet moments of your own life. What secret do you believe Grandma Aurora held closest to her heart? What was the one thing that she cherished above all else, the one thing that sustained her through the darkest of times? Was it her love for her family? Her unwavering faith? Her indomitable spirit? Or was it something else entirely? Something hidden deep within the recesses of her heart? Reflect on this question, my dears. Let it guide you on your own journey of self-discovery. Let it inspire you to live a life filled with courage, compassion, and love. And remember always that the true inheritance is not measured in gold or possessions, but in the memories we create, the connections we forge, and the legacy we leave behind. Thank you for listening to Aurora's story. Thank you for opening your hearts and minds to her experiences. Thank you for being a part of this community of storytellers and listeners. May her legacy inspire you to live a life filled with purpose, meaning, and love. And may her memory be a blessing to us all. Remember to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts below. Your engagement helps keep these stories alive. Until next time, may peace be with you.